Hey Demetrius, am I coming through clearly?
Hello,
Yeah, I can hear
Joe.
you, Joe.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Say that again?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Oh, I see what it's doing.
You cannot hear me?
Yes, now I can. No,
Okay.
it was playing through a speaker I did not expect.
All right. All right.
I'm in one of our other offices today, so I'm in a very different setup than I normally have. I'm like, oh, it's that speaker. Got it. All right, let me. Okay. So let's get people on and then we'll proceed. There,
Hello.
Good morning.
that was a very strange bleed over, but that was no harm, no foul. So we don't have to do any editing since nothing was shared on the screen and nothing was said. And no, I'm not in a second meeting in parallel. Let's go back and so Mr. Seidman, are you representing NVIDIA today?
Ron is representing. I'm here to support because I know that there was a discussion about the provisioning working group.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's so for the agenda, we were going to go through the GitHub structure and were there any other topics? Sridhar, were you going to give a recap?
Yeah, just there are one or two comments from the governing board. I can share that.
One or two comments. Okay, so let me add that. Okay. So we're going to review the thinking on the GitHub repo structure and vendor specific code today. And we want to vote that this is the way it's going to be next time. So Artisan's going to write up a few more detailed notes, and then we'll make that our policy. I think we came to a good agreement over the last couple of weeks on how to do this. And Demetrius agrees since this affected the EVPN. So we had all the usual people involved. Mark is going to be late. He has a last second engagement, but he should be here later. Do we have any other topics to cover today? Did I miss something?
I remember that, I guess this is the reason I'm here, that you wanted to talk about SCTP versus Redfish.
Yes. Correct. That's right. So we'll do that as well. So why don't we start with a quick governing board recap, then we'll do the SCTP versus Redfish for EPU, IPU config. And then we'll do the overview of the repo structure. So we'll leave 20 minutes or so at a minimum for that. All right, any other topics? Okay, so go ahead, Sridhar, give us the quick items from the governing board.
Yeah. So from the TSC updates, the main topics that included with the lab progress that we made, the internship, the repo structure, the 2 topics that we have below. These were the 4 topics that we presented to the governing board. So their feedback was one is over the last 3 months when they kind of look at it, right? They feel that TSC might be discussing a lot in coming up with finalizing some of the topics. So their suggestion or maybe their input is if TSC feels that governing board wants to step up or to involve in some of the things in any possible way, they're ready to help kind of. So that's the one thing message that they wanted me to convey to the TSC, that they are there to help if TSC would like to close up some of the issues that are pending over some time. So one of the options that typically we do in some projects is to have a joint meeting if required. But that's not they're not like suggesting that for now, but they are open to any options that TSC would want, but they are there to help, it seems. So that's the one feedback that I got. And the second one is, I think as Gal is also in the call because of that, Dror also mentioned that NVIDIA's preference is from the using the Redfish for the provisioning part against the SCTP. Maybe Gal would elaborate more on that particular topic as the next one, but that's what Dror mentioned from his point of view. So he said, yeah, we can discuss from the other vendors and see if we can come up with a final agreement on that part also.
Okay. Any questions or comments? I don't have any. All right. So for provisioning group, take it away. Let's go over this.
Regarding the whole SCTP versus Redfish, Paul is here as well. So we attended the last meeting we had about and raised this. It's not versus. For some reason, there was like a understanding that this is going to be one or the other. So now we agreed that both of them would be supported by OPI and standardized on both of them as provisioning methods. I think that most of the misunderstanding was derived from an outdated README in our provisioning working group doc. And I took the action item on myself to update that, like in one of the subfolders there. But essentially, we agreed that both Redfish and SCTP would be supported provisioning methods from OPI, and we actually have internal project in OPI that covers both of them. We have the SCTP project, and we have the Ansible Redfish collection, and we try to use Redfish all over. And yeah, NVIDIA specifically prefers Redfish, I guess, but Intel, for example, supports both of them. They just added Redfish.
Gal, just to mention, I think it's both of them can be supported, but it's not a must to support both of them.
Yes, it's not a must to support both of them, of course.
For a specific vendor.
Yes, it's not a must to support both of them. Both of them are considered OPI supported methods to provision a DPU. We understand that they have very different use cases, very different prerequisites, and so on. So,
Okay, so is there any guideline on using SCTP versus Redfish versus both? You know, Redfish exclusive, SCTP exclusive, or both in the README or any other documentation? And like,
I think it's just a matter
what
of
are-
a use case.
Okay, so,
For
yeah, go ahead.
for edge clusters, where you, for example, SCTP, for example, makes sense if all the hardware vendors support certificates of one another, switches, DPUs, everyone contains all the certificates and all the hardwares know each other from factory, basically. It has a lot of pre-requirements, I guess. And it makes a lot of sense for example, edge clusters, where you don't really want to have a management system and so on that speaks Redfish. And Redfish is on the other hand, Redfish is a very widely used standard for server provisioning. And since the XPU is a server, it is widely used, and allow us to integrate with existing provisioning system rather seamlessly, like OpenStack or Ironic and stuff like that. So I would say that, at least from my point of view, Redfish is the more general solution. And SZTP is like a zero-touch, completely optimized solution that has some prerequisites.
all right, so maybe we could get a short outline on, here's where you might consider Redfish, here's where you might consider SCTP, here's where they could actually work well together, as part of the README, or is that already there? I mean, it doesn't have to be like a huge amount of text.
It's not that clear. It's not that clear, but yeah, I can add it. It's part of my edit.
Again,
No problem.
guideline. So again, not follow this recipe and it'll tell you what to use at the end. More of general guidelines about what the overlaps and trade-offs are. So, and you just said them. I mean, you know them. So I think.
Yeah, no problem. I'll take it on myself.
Any other questions or comments?
No, thanks, Cal, for joining and
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
And just one more thing, regardless of Redfish, I just closed this thing today. So in a month from now, on the 18th to September, in the provisioning working group, we are going to have a guest lecture by Yuval Itkin, which is the chair of PLDM. He's going to review all the recent changes that were introduced to PLDM regarding that are relevant for both server vendors and XPU vendors. Actually, one of them was derived from something that we raised in PLDM, the provisioning working group, and was approved and got into the spec. So yeah, if you want to let people know from your companies, for your teams, it's going to be the 18th to September. Feel free to come with any questions to Yuval regarding PLDM.
And who is the person? I didn't catch the name.
Yuval Itkin from NVIDIA. It's with Y. I can send its name in the chat.
Yeah, put it in the chat.
Exactly.
Put the name.
I'll put the name in the chat, no problem.
Yeah. Name and topic. Yeah, put the name and the topic in the chat, and I'll put it in exactly here.
Sure. He is the PLDM chair.
Okay, any questions? Or, questions, suggestions, any other discussion?
Just from the notes there, the governing board isn't gonna, or I guess we don't have any open issues, right? I think we're in good agreement that it's the everything bagel. Like you could do either or both, right? Here, SCTP or Redfish or both, right?
Yeah, so I guess there are no open issues and we don't have to vote. In my opinion, I don't think we need a vote unless we want to vote that, Redfish shall be allowed from a TSC perspective. But, that's up to you guys. I mean, I'm comfortable with it just proceeding.
I'm
Completely
pretty
standard.
sure that you already voted on it
Or did we already
a
vote
year
on it?
ago.
Oh, a
Yeah.
year ago? Did we said Redfish was okay? I don't remember.
Yeah,
But,
it was like a year
but-
ago.
okay, then, I mean, again, I have no issue whatsoever with
Right.
Redfish.
It's just the repo, the README, the provisioning.md README needs to be updated. That's it.
Right.
To state that it's allowed, because it says it's kind of vague right now.
The README,
When we talked about it in the provisioning meeting last week, or earlier in the week, it was not, you could read this either way, I guess, but so making it not vague is all that's needed, I think.
right, so this is, guidelines and clarity. Okay, yeah, I mean, again, you can review it, Dan, and edit it and make sure it meets the clarity level that you think is necessary. And again, if we need to review it here, we can. It's whatever, I don't have a strong. Okay, yeah, I got it now. Put that in. All right, anything else? Okay, let's do, all right, Artem, go ahead and talk about the solution to the vendor code mixed into the applications and the directory structure. Do you want to present anything to show what we're doing?
I hadn't prepared any diagrams yet, so
Yeah, okay.
it's gonna
Let me
be
stop.
just a verbal introduction, right? And I'll present some diagrams probably next week. Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
go ahead.
So first of all, I'd like to provide some context. In OPI, we have some domain-specific bridges which work as a virtual XPU and implement functionality from related domains like OPI SPDK bridge from storage, EVPN bridge from networking, Strong Swan bridge from security. And we can run them without a real XPU on Linux platform and try out OPI, right? And some of the functionality of those bridges can be useful for vendor bridges. And vendors might want to reuse that functionality, right? And the proper way looks like of doing that is to import the corresponding domain bridge package into a vendor's bridge and run it in the vendor's bridge with all required plugins. The plugins should be located in vendor's repository, not in the repository with generic code. So to say, not in OPI SPDK bridge or OPI EVPN bridge. Addition of vendor-specific code into the generic bridges is not allowed. So we keep those bridges as generic as possible without any vendor details.
Arteki, you
Eh,
mean to show something to share share
no,
diagram?
no.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Thought
not
you said you
sharing.
were. That's fine.
It's gonna be just short introduction. Next
Perfect.
week I'll provide some slides to better convey
Got
the
it.
idea. Also, it's up to the vendors to decide how to organize, build all those domain services in their bridge repo. So I think it is the main announcement. Also, we came up with the steps, how we proceed with Intel Bridge, which is pioneering this approach. But I'm not sure if we need to advertise those steps here. The main idea, I suppose, was expressed, right? So we do not keep vendor-specific code in generic bridges. So probably next week, you know, with the slides, it's gonna be, you know, easily understood, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, it was, when we finally got to the answer, I thought it was pretty clean. And it basically involves using Go the way we're doing now, but structuring things such that we can do multiple main.goes later. And you build from the vendor bridge, and you build the application in the context of the vendor bridge to bring in the vendor specific code. And that lets you keep the vendor code concentrated and then the application code free of vendor specific code. And the only trick on one main.go versus multiple main.goes is how you do cross app or cross module calls, and whether you need to do a direct call or an IPC call or even a call across the network, we believe can be hidden behind a common API to facilitate eventual breakup if we got enough main.goes. And then with one main.go, you don't have to launch all the services in that application, because, you know, those launch as basically threads, you know, sets of threads of execution, and command line will specify. And that's actually a clean enough answer, because we have a path forward if things got too complex to do in one main.go. And the other thing is that you're right. So
Yes, but I'd like to stress that what you've just described is just, you know, the vendors, they are free if they want to go with one application or multiple applications, etc., etc. The main point here that vendor-specific code is not allowed in those generic repos.
right, that's a good point. I mean, again, and per vendor, even per DPU/IPU model, you could have a different approach if you really wanted to. And the point is to concentrate the vendor code, as you say, that's correct.
Yeah. Probably I will also present how Intel goes with this approach. Demonstrated probably what George just told us, that we go with single app, and that we keep the bare minimum in the main, so we could easily separate one application to multiple if the complexity drastically grows, and other things.
All right, so questions, additional color commentary or comments from people, Demetrios maybe, or you know, or Simon, or any question from anyone? So Dan and Paul and Tim, does this resolution make sense to you guys? I know I queued up a whole bunch of stuff, but execute in any order.
I like it. This is Dan. I think it's good.
Yeah, I think it sounds very reasonable.
Excellent. Yeah. We finally came to a conclusion after, all the back and forth. So that's good. Demetrius, you're still good with this? Because I think we
No, I think what Artek has just mentioned is what we have discussed in this yesterday meeting, and we are fully on board with that.
Excellent.
And let's see how much time it will take in order to implement the whole thing. We will definitely need the contributors of the OPI contributors to back us in this endeavor. So if we get like enough help, then I think we can make this happen really, really fast.
Excellent. All right. Anyone else have anything else at all? Okay. Thank you. So next week we'll do a little bit more precise review of the vendor code incorporation and separation from applications, and then vote on that and agree to it. And just as a heads up, actually that's not true. Yeah, I will be able to make it. I thought I wouldn't be able to make it, but I'm actually able to make it next week. So that's good. All right. And then
Will you be here on the 5th? Because I believe that is when we're gonna have Bob Gatos from Comcast present.
Right. Yeah, okay. Why don't you talk about that a little bit, Paul? Yes, I will be there on the 5th as well.
Okay. So we in the outreach committee have been talking to several different prospective members of the project and folks that have and essentially we've talked to Comcast, we've talked to Charter, we've talked to a company called Satura, and we've got another company called Mango Boost that we're talking to later in next week. These are folks that have interacted with OPI at a conference, have interacted with one of our blog posts and liked it or made a comment on those. And then the Linux Foundation team has been reaching out to them and setting up meetings. Comcast is interested in what we're doing. Comcast has DPUs, IPUs in their environment. They've deployed them, but they're in many cases not using them as DPUs, but as NICs. They have Robert Gatos is the gentleman we've been working with. He intends to come on September 5th to the TSC meeting and discuss what he sees as use cases for DPUs and IPUs, and what would help him out. So what things, if he were to build an OPI project, what he'd want it to do. Does that make sense? What he'd like to see from us. And he's also, it seems to be the trend with the folks that we're talking to that budgets to join the project were set at the beginning of the year, but this will go into the planning for next fiscal year for several of the companies that we've talked to. But at this point, it will be they're not planning on joining. Vic Saxena from Charter may join as well. He's actually on PTO that week, but he may join the call on the 5th to provide his insight as well. what are his use cases, what he's seeing, and he did say that he'd probably join and lurk and just listen, rather than prepare something to talk about. So that's what I know about those sorts of meetings.
Okay,
Okay, and it looks like Sridhar in the chat is saying that Alibaba's cloud team is interested in presenting to the TSC. And is it presenting their use cases? Is that it, Sridhar?
Yes, and how they're doing it, and I think they mentioned they're also working with NVIDIA Bluefield 3 and other things. So they would also like to see if they can contribute to OPI.
Okay, great.
okay, yeah, so
Is that
schedule them whenever they can. Again,
Yeah.
you know, we don't, we can accommodate such things, as you know. All right, anything else from anyone? All right, with that, we'll end the call. Thank you very much, everyone, for being very succinct and engaged, and we will talk next week.
all right?
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you much.